I don't know if anyone will notice this post, but I'm having a hard time. My name's Noah, and my wife is Laura. We've been married for 18 years and have a 16-year-old daughter named Emily. We live in Alaska, where we run a chain of stores selling tourist goods. ITVDJTM as a family business that I inherited from my dad, and during the tourist season, we do pretty well. Laura helps me run the business. She's great with customers and handles a lot of the inventory and marketing stuff. A couple of years ago, Laura and I decided to get healthier, so we started going to the gym together. At first it was fun, and we were both feeling great. But then I started noticing something that bothered me. Laura seemed to be flirting with our trainer, a guy named Mike. Mikevjtiam is one of those super fit types, always showing off his muscles. And I couldn't help but notice how Laura would laugh at his jokes and touch his arm when she talked to him. It made me uncomfortable, but I figured it was just her way of being friendly. Shevjitm has always been a bit of a flirt, and it never seemed like a big deal before. One day, I got pretty sick. Nothing serious, just a bad cold that had me feeling like crap. I told Laura I wasn't going to the gym, and she asked if I was sure. When I said no, she just said okay, and left for her workout. I sat at home for a while, but something didn't sit right with me. Maybe it was the way she seemed almost eager to get to the gym without me. I don't know. After about half an hour, I decided to go after her. For some reason, I grabbed the gun we keep in the house for protection. Don't ask me why I wasn't thinking straight. When I got to the gym, I saw them through the large glass windows. You know the kind, right? Those big transparent glass walls that modern gyms have so everyone can see inside. Anyway, Laura and Mike were talking, standing pretty close to each other. They were smiling and laughing, and it looked like they were flirting. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the way they were acting got my blood boiling. I didn't go in. I just stood there watching, feeling like a complete idiot. I went back home and waited for Laura to get back. When she walked through the door, I told her we needed to talk. I could tell she was taken aback by my serious tone, but she sat down with me. I asked her straight up what was going on between her and Mike. She looked surprised and asked me what I was talking about. I told her I'd seen them at the gym, how they were acting with each other, and how it made me feel. She laughed it off and said I was being ridiculous. She told me that Mike was just a nice guy and that she was being friendly. She said I was overreacting because I was sick and not thinking clearly, but I wasn't having it. I pressed her, saying it wasn't just that one time TMD noticed how she acted around him before. She got defensive and started turning it around on me, saying I was being paranoid and insecure. She told me that I was imagining things because I felt threatened by Mike. She even said I needed to trust her more, and that my lack of trust was the real issue here. The conversation went around in circles. Every time I tried to bring up a specific instance, she had an explanation or turned it back on me. She made me feel like I was the one with the problem, not her. By the end of it, I was exhausted and more confused than ever. She kissed me on the cheek, said she loved me, and that I had nothing to worry about. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing with all sorts of thoughts. Was I really just being paranoid? Was there something more going on that I was missing? I kept replaying the scenes in my head, trying to find some clue or sign that would tell me what to do. The next day I tried to act normal, but it was hard. I kept watching Laura for any sign that she might be hiding something. She acted like everything was fine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I started paying more attention to her phone habits, noticing if she was texting more than usual, or if she seemed to be hiding her screen from me, but I didn't find anything concrete. I talked to a couple of friends about it, and they had mixed reactions. Some told me I was probably overreacting and needed to trust Laura more. Others said I should keep an eye on things and trust my gut, but none of it made me feel any better. Our daughter Emily noticed that something was off between Laura and me. She asked if everything was okay, and I told her it was, not wanting to drag her into our problems, but it broke my heart to see her worried. A week later, Laura said she was leaving for some errands. Just in case, I installed a GPS tracker in her car. I know it may not have been right, but I saw in the app that she pulled up to some unfamiliar house. After about 15 minutes, I decided to act discreetly. I went to work and borrowed a car from my colleague, hoping my wife wouldn't recognize it. I drove to the house where she had stopped and sat in the car for about 2 hours. In those first 2 hours, the worst thoughts came to my mind. You know how your imagination runs wild in situations like this. But after the second hour, I relaxed a bit, turned on a relaxing playlist on Spotify and waited. But it turned out just as I suspected. She came out of there, and that guy from the gym was in his underwear, probably doing yoga. Yeah, right. I was furious then, but I managed to capture them on my phone. If I had gone home at that moment, it would have required involving the police because there would have been a murder. Instead, I went to a bar, had a drink, crashed at a friend's place, and then came home in the morning. No one was there. I lay down and decided to write this on Reddit. Now I'm lying in bed wondering what to do. I guess she needs to be punished somehow, because I definitely can't just accept it. I'm not a cuckold. Wow. I'm blown away by the response to my last post. You guys bombarded me with positive reviews and wrote various ways of revenge, from simply divorcing to various horrible methods. And I decided not to act with such radical methods. I mean, some of those ideas were pretty wild. And while I appreciate the creativity, I need to keep my head on straight here. A lot of you pointed out that my evidence might not be enough in court, and I will definitely sue her, so I decided not to say anything about what I know just yet. Instead, I came up with a plan. I told Laura that I need to leave because I found investors, but they are in another city. Of course, this is not true, but I decided to gather enough evidence to strip her of everything, and before that, humiliate her. I hoped that since the house was empty, especially since I said I wouldn't be there for a week, during this time she would definitely bring him to our house. Right now, I'm in another city, waiting for the motel where I want to stay to open. I'm sitting in the car, and it's terribly cold outside, with such beautiful snow falling, and I'm writing you my plan. Isn't it amazing? A month ago, 2 weeks ago, I couldn't even imagine that I would be doing this, and all because my wife wants to have sex with some dumb bodybuilder. I'm thinking now about how my wife's life will change when I finally gather all the evidence. Right now, she's probably enjoying life, jumping on that bodybuilder's dick, but how everything will change. So Laura called me earlier today, asking where I am now. I told her I'm in a motel waiting for investors, and that I'll definitely be back in about a week, no less. She sounded a bit suspicious, but didn't push it too much. Maybe Chef JTM's too busy having fun to really care. Some of you might wonder why I went to another city instead of staying with a friend or something like that. Well, we live in a small tourist town, and besides, all my friends have wives who are on good terms with Laura. I didn't want to risk it. I mean, can you imagine the gossip? Oh, and I forgot to mention that I set up hidden cameras all over the house, except for my daughter VDJTM's room and the bathroom, of course. I'm not a pervert. Anyway, now I'm waiting for Laura to let her lover into my house. It happened just as I thought. When Emily went to school, Laura brought that freak Mike into our home. You know, when I saw them enter on the camera feed, it felt like I was watching a completely different woman. Definitely not my wife, and definitely not the girl I had anything left for. I looked at it like regular porn, and yes, I had an erection. Since it's an anonymous account, there's no point in lying. It was a weird mix of emotions, anger, disgust, and yeah, arousal. Go figure. So they made themselves comfortable. I watched on the hidden camera as they kissed in the kitchen, moving around like they owned the place. Mike even grabbed a beer from the fridge like he lived there. I felt my blood boiling, but I kept it together. I needed all the evidence I could get. They moved to the living room and things got heated. Laura was all over him, and he was loving every second of it. It was like watching a bad reality show, but this one starred my wife. I captured it all on my phone. Every kiss, every touch, every moment of betrayal. After about an hour, they moved to our bedroom. Our bedroom. That hit me hard. I almost lost it, but I forced myself to stay calm. I needed to see this through. I needed to be smart about this. They were in there for a while doing God knows what. I didn't need to see it all. I had enough evidence already. I just felt numb. When they finally came out, they were laughing and joking like nothing was wrong. Laura walked Mike to the door, gave him a long, lingering kiss, and watched him leave. She then went about her day like nothing had happened. It was surreal. With all the evidence ready, I packed up and got ready to go home. I had everything I needed to confront her and to make sure she got what she deserved. But I knew I had to play it smart. I couldn't let her know what I knew just yet. When I got home late in the evening, the house was quiet. Laura was in the living room watching TV like it was just another night. She looked up when I walked in, surprised to see me. "Noah, you're back early. How did it go?" she asked a bit too casually. I forced a smile and shrugged. "It was okay. Investors want to take some more time to decide. Thought I'd come back and surprise you." She smiled back, but I could see a flicker of nervousness in her eyes. "Well, it's good to have you back." "Thanks," I replied, trying to sound as normal as possible. "IVDT and them, I'm pretty tired though. Think I'll head to bed early." "Sure, no problem," she said, turning back to the TV. I went to our bedroom and lay down, my mind racing. I knew I couldn't VDD let this go on much longer. I had to act, but I needed to be careful. The next step was to fire her from all the businesses I owned, but I'll implement that in the next part. For now, I had to keep pretending everything was fine. So what do you think? What should my next move be? How do I handle this in the smartest way possible? I'm back with an update. A lot has happened since my last post, and I could really use your advice again. Things are getting intense, and I need to stay focused. So, I'm still in another city. Early in the morning, I had a meeting with my lawyer. I drove over there feeling a mix of nerves and determination. I wanted to make sure I had everything in place to win this. When I walked into the lawyer's office, it felt surreal. The office was quiet and professional, with shelves of thick law books and a big mahogany desk where my lawyer sat. "Morning, Noah," he said, looking up from his paperwork. "Take a seat. Let's go over everything." I sat down and handed him the photos and videos IVGRTMD collected. He looked through them, nodding. "This is solid evidence," he said, "but we need to be strategic about how we use it. You did the right thing by not confronting her yet. We'll build a strong case." We spent the next hour discussing the details. He explained how we could use the evidence to ensure I got a favorable outcome in court. He also advised me on how to handle the confrontation with Laura and her family. By the end of the meeting, I felt more confident. I knew I had to stay calm and collected to see this through. Later that evening, I decided it was time to gather the whole family and tell them what was going on. I wanted them to know the truth, and I wanted to do it in a way they wouldn't forget. We all sat down at the dining table, Laura, our daughter Emily, and her parents. Laura VJJ, Tim's father, was in a cheerful mood, cracking jokes and trying to lighten the atmosphere. I took a deep breath and stood up. "I have something important to tell you all," I said, my voice steady. "Laura has been unfaithful to me. My dear wife turned out to be a bitch." The room went silent. I pulled out the stack of printed photos and threw them onto the table. The photos spread out, showing Laura and Mike in various compromising positions. Laura's face turned white, and she looked like she was about to faint. Oh, and to you readers, if you're wondering why the photos are screenshots instead of videos, well, it turned out the camera didn't VJ record. Yep, I know, I'm a bit of a tech dummy, but I managed to take screenshots. Her father, who had been so cheerful, suddenly trembled. His face twisted in anger, and he lunged at me across the table. "You bastard!" he shouted, but he was restrained by his wife and my lawyer, who was there to witness everything. Emily, my daughter, looked at the photos, her eyes wide with shock. She didn't say a word. She just got up and fled to her room. "Everyone please leave," I said firmly. "I need to talk to Laura alone." One by one, they left the room. I turned to Laura, who was sobbing uncontrollably. "You leave too," I said coldly. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face, and ran out of the house to her car. Her parents followed her, her mother shouting, "Stop! This jerk wants to kick you out! This is your home!" But Laura didn't listen. She got in her car and sped away, leaving her parents standing in the driveway. Her mother turned back to me, fury in her eyes. "How could you do this to her? This is all your fault!" I kept my voice calm. She brought this on herself. She made her choices, and now she has to face the consequences. The next step was to fire her from the company. The next morning, Laura came to work as usual. As she passed by the reception, she noticed the secretary looking at her sympathetically. "Is something wrong?" Laura asked. "It's better if you talk to your husband," the secretary replied, looking uncomfortable. Laura headed to my office, but she was stopped by the head of the HR department. "I'm sorry, but you no longer work here. Your dismissal was processed yesterday." Laura DJTM's face went pale. What? You can't do this! She screamed. This is my company too! The HR head shook his head. I'm sorry, but the decision has been made. Laura lost it. She started throwing things off desks, knocking over a stack of files and screaming at everyone. The office went silent, everyone staring at the scene she was causing. Eventually, security had to escort her out. Afterwards, a few friends reached out to see how I was doing. They asked if I needed psychological help and suggested I should see a psychologist. I told them about my posts on Reddit and how much feedback I was getting. It really helps, I said. People write a lot of helpful advice that keeps me going. One of my friends, Jack, nodded. Just make sure you're taking care of yourself, man. This is a lot to handle. Later that evening, I decided to talk to Emily. Chev DJ TM's almost grown up now, and I knew she deserved to hear my side of the story. I knocked on her door, and she let me in. She was sitting on her bed looking lost. Dad, what DJ TM's going on? She asked, her voice shaky. I sat down next to her and took a deep breath. Emily, sorry you had to see all that. Your mom? She made some bad choices. She betrayed our family. I want you to know that none of this is your fault. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I can't believe she did that. How could she? I don't know, I said, shaking my head. But we are going to get through this together. I promise. She hugged me tightly, and for the first time in days, I felt a bit of relief. At least I still had her support. What should my next move be? How do I handle this in the smartest way possible? I'm back with another update. It's been 3 weeks since everything went down, and surprisingly, things have been very calm. I felt like I could finally live normally again. I didn't mention it before, but I enjoy bowling and hunting. And lately, IV felt happy. I was glad that I could finally spend time with people I'm sure of, people who won't betray me. Every weekend I went hunting with my friend Jack. Get up early, pack our gear, and head out into the woods. There's something really peaceful about being out there, just me, Jack, and nature. Spend the day tracking deer, sharing stories, and just enjoying the quiet. After each workday, I went bowling. It became my routine. There is a local bowling alley where IVD8 been going for years. I even joined a league. My teammates have been really supportive, and it feels good to have something steady in my life. This is slightly unrelated to my story, but my daughter Emily has a new boyfriend. His name's Kyle, and they've been spending a lot of time together. If you have any advice on how to handle this, please share it. I want to make sure TM's happy and safe, but ITM's tough to know what to do sometimes. The court date is approaching, where I would see Laura's face again, and she would pay for betraying me. I've been trying to prepare myself mentally for it. I know IVJTM is going to be tough, but IVJTM determined to stay strong and make sure she doesn't get more than she deserves. Yesterday, around 2:30 a.m., my phone rang. It was Laura, crying, saying her car broke down and she needed a ride. Of course, ITVJTM's an old story. We all know it one VJ attempt lead to anything good. But when she said she wasn't VJ seeing that musclehead anymore, and when I asked why her masculine friend couldn't VJ help, something clicked inside me. I don't know why, but I went. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe I just wanted to see her face when she realized she had no control over me anymore. I picked her up and we talked a bit on the way back. She apologized for everything, said she was sorry for hurting me. I didn't know what to think. Part of me wanted to believe her, but another part of me was still so angry. We got back to my place, and that VDJTM when things got interesting. Her gym buddy showed up, barging into my house like he owned the place. There was a little conflict when he confronted me. He was yelling, trying to intimidate me, but I wasn't VDDTMT having it. I calmly walked over to the drawer where I keep my gun, pulled it out, and showed it to him. His face went pale, and he backed off. Laura stood there looking between us, and I could see in her eyes that she felt nothing for that jerk anymore. She was scared and confused. After they left, I lay on my bed, remembering what happened, and hatred flooded over me. They say time heals all wounds, but it VGTM's true what they say about remembering the pain. I remember this feeling very well. It vjrtams like a burning pit in my stomach that just won't go away. I know I need to focus on the future and getting through the court date, but ITVDAJRTM's hard when the past keeps creeping up on you. So, the time for court is approaching. Maybe you have some advice? I want to make sure IVJ are ready for whatever happens. IVJ saw TMDARV got my lawyer, IVJ TMVV got the evidence, but I know ITVJ TM's going to be a battle. I just need to keep my head straight and stay focused on what VJJ TM's important. Making sure Laura doesn't JTMT get more than she deserves, and protecting Emily from all this mess. IVJJTM back with another update, and things have reached a boiling point. The court date finally arrived, and let me tell you, it was one of the most nerve-wracking days of my life. Harev GRTM's how it all went down. Before the start of the trial, I visited my lawyer. He was very confident about the upcoming day. We sat in his office surrounded by files and legal documents. "Noah, we've got this," he said, looking me in the eye. "We've prepared well and the evidence is solid. Just stay calm and answer everything honestly. Let me handle the rest." His confidence was reassuring, but I still felt a knot in my stomach. Before the trial began, I talked to my daughter, Emily. She was going to be asked in court whom she wanted to stay with, and I wanted to make sure she was okay. "Emily, this is going to be tough, but I need you to be honest about what you want," I told her. She looked at me with those big worried eyes and nodded. "I know, Dad. I want to stay with you," she said. Her words gave me a bit of strength. I knew this was NBJJJ meet easy for her either. I also met with a couple of friends to try and ease my nerves. We grabbed coffee and talked about everything but the trial. Jack, my hunting buddy, and Tom, my bowling partner, were there. "Noah, this is like the final boss in a video game," Jack said, trying to lighten the mood. "UVJ Tom V've been through the levels, and now ITVDJ Tim's time to beat the game." We laughed, but it was true. This trial was the final boss, and my whole journey had been leading up to this day. You know, just a few months ago, I didn't VJ Temet even think about this. I remember that day when Laura and I were talking about the future. In fact, there were many such days. But the day we were in Hawaii, IVDJ Tamel remember forever. We discussed how we would look in old age, how we would have many grandchildren. Oh, how wrong we were. It VJ TM's crazy how things can change so quickly. One moment you VJ TM are planning your golden years with someone, and the next, you VJ Temo are planning a courtroom battle against them. Before the trial, Laura called me, crying, asking for forgiveness. She was sobbing on the phone, saying she was sorry and begging me to take her back. But I didn't just tell him to respond twice, and then I just blocked her. I knew it was a manipulative tactic, and I couldn't VDATM to afford to get sucked back into her drama. So the day of the trial began. I was more collected than ever. I was ready to destroy her. I remembered all the events, how she lied to me and cheated on me. I looked at those photographs and regained the same conviction that she needed to be punished. I put on my best suit and walked into that courtroom with my head held high. Everyone gathered. Everyone came. Laura was there with her lawyer, looking nervous. Her parents were sitting behind her, and they didn't look as confident in their righteousness anymore. I guess they finally saw through her lies. Emily sat beside me, holding my hand. I could feel her trembling, but she was trying to be brave. The trial began, and it was intense. My lawyer started by presenting the evidence. He laid out the photos, the videos, and the documented incidents of her cheating and deceit. The judge listened carefully, nodding along as my lawyer made our case. Laura of JTM's lawyer tried to discredit the evidence, saying it was circumstantial and didn't BJTMT prove infidelity beyond a doubt. But we had so much it was impossible to deny. Then came the part where Emily had to speak. She stood up, looking so small and vulnerable, but she spoke with a clear voice. "I want to stay with my dad," she said. "Hev Juklam's always been there for me, and I don't trust my mom anymore." It broke my heart to hear her say that, but I was so proud of her bravery. Laura was called to the stand next. She tried to paint a picture of a broken marriage and said she was driven to seek comfort elsewhere because I was distant and uncaring. It was all lies, and I could see through her act. The judge, however, remained impartial and listened to her side. When it was my turn to speak, I told the court about the countless nights I spent wondering where she was, the lies she told, and how I found out about her affair. I spoke from the heart, and I could see the judge was listening closely. I talked about how it affected Emily and how I just wanted to protect my daughter from more pain. Laura's parents tried to defend her, saying she was a good mother and deserved a second chance. But their words seemed hollow compared to the mountain of evidence we had. My lawyer cross-examined them, pointing out inconsistencies in their stories. Finally, the closing arguments were made. My lawyer emphasized the betrayal, the lies, and the impact on our daughter. Laura of DJTM's lawyer tried to downplay everything, saying we were blowing things out of proportion and that Laura deserved her share of the assets. As we waited for the judge's decision, I looked around the courtroom. Laura VJTM's parents were whispering to each other, looking worried. Laura was fidgeting, tears streaming down her face. Emily was holding my hand tightly, and I squeezed back, trying to reassure her. The judge called everyone to attention. My heart was pounding as he began to speak. After reviewing all the evidence and hearing both sides, I have come to a decision, he said, looking around the courtroom. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I find that Mr. Noah Smith has provided substantial evidence of Mrs. Laura Smith's infidelity and deceit. The photographs, videos, and documented incidents present a clear case of betrayal and dishonesty, the judge continued. Laura's lawyer tried to remain composed, but I could see the worry on his face. Furthermore, the judge went on, I have taken into account the emotional impact this situation has had on the minor child, Emily Smith. It is evident from her testimony and the circumstances that remaining with her father is in her best interest. I squeezed Emily VJJTSM's hand, feeling a rush of relief and gratitude. She looked up at me with a small, hopeful smile. Regarding the division of assets, the judge said, turning his attention back to the case files, Mr. Noah Smith will retain full ownership of the family home and the business. Mrs. Laura Smith will be granted a reasonable settlement, which reflects her contribution to the marriage, but does not entitle her to an equal share of the assets given her actions. Laura's face crumbled as she realized what this meant. She was going to walk away with much less than she had hoped for. Her parents looked equally devastated, but I couldn't attempt to bring myself to feel sorry for them. Lastly, the judge concluded, Mrs. Laura Smith is hereby restricted from residing in the family home until such time as she can make alternate living arrangements. Custody of Emily Smith is awarded to Mr. Noah Smith. Visitation rights for Mrs. Laura Smith will be determined at a later date, pending further evaluation. With that, the judge banged his gavel, signaling the end of the trial. I felt a massive weight lift off my shoulders. It was finally over. I had won. Laura stood there, tears streaming down her face, looking utterly defeated. Her lawyer whispered something to her, but she just shook her head and walked out of the courtroom without another word. Her parents followed her, throwing one last glare in my direction. I turned to my lawyer, shaking his hand firmly. Thank you. I couldn't have done this without you, I said, my voice full of gratitude. You did great, Noah. Go home and start rebuilding your life, he replied with a smile. Emily and I walked out of the courtroom together, hand in hand. As we stepped outside, the cold Alaskan air hit us, but for the first time in a long while, it felt refreshing, not suffocating. It's been a month since the trial ended, and I wanted to give you all an update on how things have been going. Your support throughout this whole ordeal has meant the world to me, and I thought you deserved to know where we stand now. So, it's been a month since the court ruled in my favor. IVDJTMV had some time to breathe and try to figure out what VJTMM's next for Emily and me. Life has been pretty quiet, which is a relief after everything we VJTM have been through. IVDJTM have been spending a lot of time with Emily, making sure VJTM's okay, and trying to rebuild our lives. One question I got a lot was, what about your ex-wife's friends? Did they support her or what? Well, to be honest, most of her friends turned their backs on her. She only has one friend left, and of course, her parents. Everyone else pretty much sided with me. ITDJTM's crazy how quickly people can change sides when they see the truth. I think her friends were as shocked and disgusted by her actions as I was. The latest update is pretty heavy. Laura tried to end her life. I got a call from the hospital saying she had been admitted after a suicide attempt. As far as I know, no one came to see her, not even her parents. VJTM's sad, but ITVDJTM's hard for me to feel sympathy for her after everything she did. She and her parents tried to contact me, but I ignored them. They no longer exist in my life. I have to move forward for Emily's sake and my own sanity. This whole situation has been especially tough on Emily. Seeing her mother betray our family and then try to end her life has been a lot for her to handle. I started taking her to specialists to help her understand and accept everything that VJTM's happening. We've JTM working with a therapist who specializes in family trauma, and ITVDJTM has been helping. Chev DJTM's still struggling, but I can see Chev EJTM's starting to come to terms with it all, little by little. As for me, this whole experience has taught me a lot. ITVJTM has been the hardest thing IVJTMV ever gone through, but IVJTMV come out of it stronger. IVJTMV learned that I can handle a lot more than I ever thought I could. IVDJTMVZ learned that sometimes people are NVJTNMT who you think they are, and that VDJ are TM's okay. You just have to keep moving forward and focus on the people who really matter. I also learned the importance of having a support system. My friends, my lawyer, and even strangers on the internet have helped me through this. I couldn't VDTM it have done it without all of you. Your advice, your encouragement, and just knowing that I was in VDTMTT alone made all the difference. In conclusion, this whole ordeal has been a nightmare, but IVDJTMV come out of it stronger and more determined to protect my daughter and provide a better life for her. Laura VJTM's actions have shown me who she really is, and while ITVJTM's been painful, ITVJTM's also been freeing. I don't have to live in fear or uncertainty anymore. I can move forward with my life, knowing that I did everything I could to do the right thing.